Hi, I'm Mandi Feely-Swain, and we are at another session of Origination Boost podcast. And today my guest is a good friend that I go way, way back with in the mortgage business, Leif Boyd. So I'm glad you're here.
Hey, Mandi. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about, first of all, tell us a little bit about your run in the mortgage space, because you've kind of worn lots of hats. So talk to me about what you've done in your career and where you're at today.
I've worn hats from originator to branch manager to head of production to president. And it's been an incredible journey to be able to see the things I've seen. And in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm just getting started. But you look at those foundational pieces that of knowledge, I guess, that you can acquire. In some senses, I think we all want to be that person who plays for one team. I loved my first team, as I know you did as well. But it's that experience in the whole broad context of the market, I think, that really starts to shape us and allow us to see, what's out there and how we can do this business to the best of our abilities.
Yeah. So what have you loved the best? I mean, I get asked that question, like, what have you loved about the business, and what keeps you kind of going? In the business space? I mean, personally, you probably have a why that keeps you charged up. I know you can talk about that, but in the business space, there's got to be some fire in your belly that keeps you showing up through whatever market we've been through. And you and I have been through all kinds of crazy markets, both of us in our careers.
I think it's I have an athletic background. I wasn't great, but I played a lot and I enjoyed myself. And I love the camaraderie. I love the teamwork. I love winning. I love winning together as a team. I love solving the puzzles and the challenges. I joked, and I could say it whatever number of years it was. If I've been doing this 25 years, I could say I did 25 different jobs. But it's a joke, but it's true. And in some senses, it's almost month to month with what we do in solving the puzzles and solving the challenges. Even as you and I were chatting before, we're going to talk about the market. What does that mean today? What does that mean next week? What did it mean 2 weeks ago? Yeah. So I really enjoy those aspects of all the things that it takes to put together the winning strategy.
Well, it's never the same, right? And I think that for people like us that have busy brains, the mortgage space gives us an outlet to where it's never we aren't making widgets. We are funding the American dream. And a lot of it's regulated by the agencies and government regulation and desire for Wall Street. I mean, there's a lot of variables that we don't control in our space that but we have to basically receive and then react to, right? And we both survived in this mortgage space because we've been able to adapt or change or be willing to learn a new job. Like you said, maybe a new hat every month. You're like, Mandi, I've worn a lot of hats, but I kind of have to have a new hat every month. And I kind of think that that's one of the longevity in this business requires that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're, what do they say? The only constant is change.
Yes.
And I think that's especially true in the mortgage space. I mean, we are somewhere in between counselors to whether it's producers or even clients. There's a lot of mystery that surrounds mortgage and what goes into it. You laid out those 5, 6, 7 external influences that no one really talks about. Like if someone sees us at a cocktail party, it's what are rates?
Yeah.
Right. And that's usually what it boils down to, but not all the elements that are in that. And so we're looking at our crystal ball, trying to figure out what's going on. We're looking to the past. And then you're in a situation like today with a war going on where there's no playbook. Yeah. Right. And we're all trying to react a little bit day by day. And, all of a sudden we're checking oil futures every morning and operating a little differently. So I think that adaptability, like you really, you said there, is so key.
Well, to your point, the war, nobody had that in their business plan. I guarantee you when they were writing them in Q4 of 25, I did not. I wasn't like,
no.
I expected us to, and we were seeing that 10-year kind of come down, and then boom, it's like, okay, we're almost to 4.5. And how do you adapt to that? How do you have those hard conversations with your customers because they're floating or what have you? And I think that the best loan officers are good expectation setters. When things like that happen, like the war, I think that you have to be a very good expectation setter with your clients, because and very transparent and honest. We don't control those things. And I think as soon as originators realize they don't have to control everything, the job becomes a lot less stressful. Don't you agree? Just you manage loan officers every day, and just the psyche of a loan officer. In your perspective, what are you telling your LOs? I mean,
we are preaching a lot of calm in the eye of the hurricane right now,
yeah.
because I think that is, for a lot of reasons, it can feel chaotic for us in the things that we're doing day to day. And when you see things like, was the market was down 81 or something the other day, those red numbers and crooked numbers that we're not used to. And I think acknowledging to starting with us, right, as leaders, acknowledging to our loan officers that we're feeling the same things, we're seeing the same things, but we do have access to a lot of information. Buying a home already is a very emotional process. Refinancing a home is an emotional process for the consumer, because there's so many things we don't think about, right? They're moving their power, they're packing boxes, they're leaving a place they've lived in, they're starting fresh in some way. There's all these layers that don't have really to do with us. And so it's important that we don't cause additional chaos, that we're open, we're honest. It's hard, I think, as whether you're an expert in any field, and I think all our loan officers want to be experts in their field. It's hard to say, I don't know, and I'm not sure. But to the point you made earlier, sometimes that is the best medicine, is that openness and honesty. We're all watching it. I may not know exactly, but I'm going to be watching this on your behalf. I'm paying attention to this for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And I'll let my expertise shine in. But yeah, we're preaching patience, and we're providing information. We're trying to push out information, get it in front of people, let them absorb it, figure out what to do with it, and then serve their clients in the best ways.
Yeah. I think that some loan officers after 22 really faced burnout. And how did you help your LO team push through that kind of burnout phase to continue to succeed? And I think that they've had to evolve a lot, the originator, right? And we've seen people exiting the business. And how have you coached your LOs through that? What's kind of been your advice or your wisdom that you've shared? Because you've had great success in the mortgage space, right?
Well, number one, I'm extremely proud of everyone that's here, that persevered. Like, honestly,
everyone,
no matter what you're
across the United States, if you're in it
across the
still,
United States, if you're in
you.
it, seriously, like what you went through, and the chaos and the lack of knowing, adjusting. I think everyone had to look at their personal P&L, coming off wild years, and say, how do I adjust? I think what we really work hard on is constantly helping provide challenges that people can embrace. You and I talked earlier about, accountability starts with yourself. And so we take that to heart. I don't think my style, and I've worked with you a little bit, and I think we know each other. I've never really felt like top down feels great to me. And I've never gravitated towards those environments. I've gravitated towards environments that lift people up and provide the opportunities and the open door, and then, do what you will with it. Right. But that's really our role. Is like you talked about business planning.
Grab the shovel, man. Grab the shovel.
That's right.
Right.
Grab the shovel. Let's get in there together. Let's figure this out. And how do we support you best? What are the tools that you need? What are the challenges we can put in front of you to help you elevate your game? And sounds cliche, but I think it's really be the best version of yourself. I think that's whether you're golfing, at the gym, whatever, like eating, whatever matters to you, be the best version of yourself. And I think that goes for, how we try and support our loan officers as well.
Yes. For your top performers at your company, what are you seeing that they're doing strategically to win in their market, right? And you guys, your company, tell me if I'm wrong, but I know you're in Southern Cal, and maybe it's been affordability issues or lack of inventory. And so they've had to navigate that. Are they moving into different communities or zip codes or states to get licensed in those states? Because I know that, in San Diego area, at least where you're at, that's been a challenge. And I mean, even in Boise, Idaho, we had a lot of COVID refugees come to Idaho, and it moved our price point up a lot. So we've struggled with affordability issues and inventory for a while there. It seems to have evened out a little bit because we just have more space to grow here. But what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, so like you know, each market is a microcosm, right? And everyone's experiencing their own thing. And I think the challenge in one place is maybe the win in another, but when you see the exodus, it's causing the affordability challenges everywhere. I mean, you know, just go into that topic first. I've certainly seen more ARM and buy down activity than I've been familiar with in the past. I've seen really creative bridge loan solutions. You know, knowing that maybe with the affordability, there wasn't this, I can just automatically qualify you for 2 residences and let's roll the dice. There's needs to handle the departing residents, especially in the inventory challenge. This goes back to the puzzles we're talking about and how you solve, because as we talk about one issue, right, it layers down into all the other ones that are connected to this. So, but our top producers, the consistent trait is that they go deep with their realtor partners, and even in the refi boom environments, they probably held on to those relationships a little tighter than most. I think we saw some of the challenges if you know, kind of the realtor environment was allowed to go to the side and the focus became too heavy on database management, then all of a sudden that goes away and you look around and, you know, your referral partners are maybe not picking up the phone and calling you anymore. So we see people that go really deep in those relationships and also are constantly striving to add more relationships and continue to build that. That's one of the things we're working on, is how do we become the backbone of your database management? And I know you and Corey are passionate about that as well.
We kind of geek out on that too.
Yeah, because it's like, how can I make this part that's super critical more approachable for you so you don't find yourself consumed by it, so you can consume yourself with this pursuit of these incredible relationships that are going to sustain your business month in, month out.
Well, that you bring up a very valid point, and I've met many top performing loan officers that have no database. It's wild because they've maybe gone from company to company or what have you, and they don't have their database, and they've had this broad career of success, but they almost are having to reinvent it every time. If they make a move, they're almost having to start over. They maybe have the realtor and they've kept that deep bench of agent partners and they take them from wherever, you know, because honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what the name on the door is. It matters who the loan officer is. That's who people want to work with, is the loan officer, right? And so the name on the door is kind of, it should support your business. And when it no longer aligns with your business, then you make decisions and you make moves. And so I respect that. But on the other hand, I've met originators coming into our company, it's been interesting to hear that they don't have a database. That hasn't been a focus of their business. And I think whether it's a refi market or a purchase market, my database has been, it's gold. It's your best ROI, I think, in the mortgage space. And you know, having and sorting it out by raving fans versus clients maybe I served once and I haven't heard from in 10 years. That's kind of how I sort mine out, right? And so I think you bring up a really valid point that if you're a newer originator and you're listening to this, that if I had to go back 25 years, like I would tell you that you should make sure that your database, that you maintain it, that it is yours, that, you know, I started with my mom's Christmas card list when I started my database. So, you know,
the friends and family
you
list,
bring up a really great point about database management and realtor partners and finding that balance, right?
Well, and I think, you know, part of our job, and you asked earlier, like, what do we do, right? It's supporting those producers. So I think you and I can lean on our challenges of database management over the years and where are the things that held us back and how do we provide those tools. I like to tell everyone, you know, your database is always being worked. It might as well be by you. The acknowledgement of what these servicing platforms have done. It's like, hey, folks, these people aren't dummies. They didn't spend this amount of cash to watch this stuff bleed out the side door. right? This is a retention play and it's
Right.
strategic. And so how are you getting out in front of it? But, so this individual might watch this, right? And if he does, he'll know I'm talking about him. But we've got one of our loan officers, his database is a yellow pad, right? But in some senses, you're like, God love him because at least he has one,
Yeah.
right? But he's like
Amen.
flipping through and this
Absolutely.
client, and he can tell you everything about him. But no one, it's kind of like when you're a young adult and you realize that you went all the way through school and no one taught you what a credit score was and how to pay your bills or how to balance a checkbook and like real life skills. It's
Yeah.
like when loan officers come into our world, you're not really taught all this stuff about like that first person you talk to is as valuable and as golden as the 1000th client you serve. Like it's that database management. And I know you guys passionate around it. I think it's awesome. I think we feel the same. And it's also for us, and you're probably there too, how do we help people do this activity? Because like in the digital world, a name and the data is fairly sterile. In a loan officer world, it can be a little emotional, like, oh yeah, that client, I remember I talked to them
Yeah.
for like,
I
I
remember
call
that
them, I'd be
client.
on the
That was
phone for an
rough.
hour
Yeah.
and 15 minutes. And sometimes that creates like that call reluctance almost with your own database. And so how do we even move people past that where we're just creating constant activity and inertia with those clients that folks have acquired through the years?
Well, I love your yellow pad example. And the reason I love
Yeah.
the yellow pad example is because people really need to do it your own way, right? You and I can coach, train, love you, motivate you. But honestly, you need to take whatever you're told or learn or listen to and then adapt it to your own personality. So that person that has the yellow pad, he has a plan. He has a system that works for him. And each, Leaf and I can be in the business 25 and 30 years each, and we can give you all the ways to do it. And you still, I would say that that's been a secret kind of sauce for me as I listen to other people that I admire or respect and get information from, and then I adapt it to how it works for me and my
Yeah, that's
personality.
right.
And so
Yeah.
I'd say that those top performers that I've met over the years, they adapt things to their personality. They adapt things to the way they're going to work. So the yellow pad example is great because it shows that there's ways to win and it doesn't have to, like, everybody's talking AI right now and he's got this yellow pad, but he knows it in depth. He probably has a stack of them over the years that he can go back through and he knows that they're dated and he has a system and a process. And top originators have system and processes. And that is a great example that you need to still do it with your own flair and flavor, right? I mean,
That's right. That's right. And just to add to that, because I agree with everything you said, just do it. Right.
yeah,
The fact that
yes,
you're doing it is the biggest win.
yeah,
Like we could have a matter of taste discussion about that and say, like, dude, I hope you have those in a fireproof safe or something.
yeah.
Because that's like, so we can have that conversation all day long, but to the people who aren't doing it, I think that's the bigger
Just
challenge.
start.
Right. If you're
That's such
not
great
keeping it,
advice.
just
Just
start.
start.
Just
Just
yeah, just
start.
get going. It's gonna done correctly feed your family for years to come. Like you said, the ROI is significant. If you're thinking about every client as a component of your database, every conversation that you have with them is different from the beginning anyway. It's
Well,
you're not transactional anymore. You're focusing on long-term relationships and servitude, even into your community, which matters so much.
Well, and I found this interesting. I talked to an originator that had went through kind of a phase in his career that he came out of that 2021 era and he thought he was King Kong and then kind of had to
Yeah.
reinvent himself after he kind of came out of that because he did exactly what he said, stuck with the database, closed those loans and didn't have the refinances. And he goes, I knew I needed two transactions to leverage those folks in that experience, the seller, the listing agent, the selling agent, title, insurance, so that that could be my catalyst, my kind of jumping off point to build from there. And I thought, wow, so if a new originator feels overwhelmed, I would say get your first couple deals. Loans get loans. If you work the transaction and work all of the opportunities you have within the transaction, would be like very good advice to somebody that is either feeling like they're stuck in a rut and you're like, how do I start over? Just get a couple deals and leverage all of the opportunity you get, right? I don't know, like, what do you think? That's how I thought that
I
was such great advice.
I think it's genius. I think it's that's such a lost thing is I don't know if it's a lost thing, but I would say it's a top producer thing is learning how to leverage all the elements of a transaction. But it's like any other learned behavior. You just jump into the pool and you start thrashing around and you make that first call. And I remember very similarly, the first task I was ever given to help build a company was go recruit in this area, and I had no idea what to do, but I just leaned on those. I called title and escrow officers and
Yeah,
like,
I think
who do you
title and
know?
escrow are
And
my
yeah,
favorite. Like,
yeah,
love
they
them
really
people.
are. They know everyone. They know everyone, and they talk to everyone throughout the day. And I've also found if you can really define what you're looking for, if you can tell people what you're looking for, they can give you a lot of help. People like to help other people. It's like a human characteristic that we can all lean into. And when you can clearly articulate what you're looking for, people, their gears really do start turning, and they think about how they can give good opportunities your way. So
Well,
that's another area of encouragement.
I love that so much. And when I kind of was getting started again, you were kind of with me in that phase where, in 11, due to comp reform, everybody's worried about producing branch managers. And I was like, okay,
Right, right.
I need to get back to the front line. To your point earlier, like, grab a shovel. I had a 2 and a 5-year-old, and I needed to get back to the front line because I needed to be in charge of my destiny and in charge of my paycheck. So I've never let my origination business, no matter what my job title was, go, because I always wanted to be in charge of my own destiny, so to speak. But with that
Yeah.
said, um, when I when I kind of rebooted my career, I wasn't shy to tell people that their referrals would help me succeed. They made a difference in my business, and I was really honest about that. I was raw about it, and I think sometimes we get to the point where you know we should focus on letting people be a little bit more in your space, so to speak, so that they can feel you and they understand that you're human, and that you, because of that, you know, I called my database and said, hey, do you know any agents that you work with on your homes that you think I work well with? And then I called those agents and I said, Susie Johnson said that you and I would be awesome together. And
Yep.
that became a warmer call than just dialing up all the top producers in your market, because that is uncomfortable. So
Completely. Yeah. That the idea of opening up to people is it's humbling and it can be very threatening to a lot of people, but it is the absolute goal because we are all human. I've learned throughout the years, no one has their act together. No one has everything. No one is as it seems on the outside. And
yeah.
so everyone's open, willing, collaborative, like they want to work together. They want to help other people. Just calling and telling people how you build your business, saying that this is what I work on. I work on referrals. This is how it works. I got great advice from a coach early on, actually, who taught me the very simple, like getting a referral starts in the first conversations. And so I would always tell people that I built my business on referrals, but I was only going to ask for referrals if I met their needs. And then
Oh,
I'd
that's
get
very
really
good. I
clear
like
on
that.
their needs. Yeah, I'd write them down, back before I had a CRM of any kind, write down their needs. What do they want? And then I'd come back and say, reaffirm their needs, and then come back later on and say, did I meet all of these needs? Well, remember, I work on referrals. I'd really love, if you could give me some based on serving this. And that was really effective. It's shockingly like the little things, but doing the little, you talked about it earlier, I think it was when we were chatting before, though. It's kind of like the dirty work, but doing it
Yeah,
over
the
and over and
non-sexy part
over
of the
again.
business, friends.
Yeah, just doing it over. Yeah, the non-sexy, do the non-sexy over. And it's like the 4:30 a.m. alarm to go to the gym, right?
Yeah,
And no one's looking great at that. That's definitely
yeah,
non-sexy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's like the doing it over and over, creating that consistent habits, the practices that serves you so well.
Yeah, so I was sharing with Leif before we hopped on the episode today that I'd created this app that, the A word, accountability, is like the F word in, every other space. But nobody really wants to talk about accountability. But I think that the top producers that I've met throughout the country, not necessarily Premier or partners or, many different brokers, bankers, IMBs, you name it. And I'll say that find self accountability, like you said. They have their own agenda for the day. They have system and processes, and they really don't negotiate with themselves. They like, this is what I do. This is how I do it every day, and they show up even if they're not winning. So some days this business is hard. I think that I need to be really honest. I'm a top 1%er, all of those things, but this business is hard, and it will take from you as much as you'll give it. And I think on those days that are hard, my advice is take baby steps forward. Make 2 calls, maybe in the days you're crushing life, you're talking to 15, 16 of your agent partners, and you're trying to make deals. But on the days that are hard, just kind of take those baby steps. And Leif, as you've coached loan officers, that's how I've kind of encouraged people to move forward. It's just the little things on the days that are your hardest, right?
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. I've coached around knowing your top priorities, and that's what I think you can always lean into. Like, we all have, I don't know what your to-do list looks like, but I know what mine looks like. And it's a laundry list, and some days the to-do list gets longer without getting shorter. In fact, most days. But what are your real top priorities? Like, what are the things that really matter? And on days that are chaotic, or days when life interferes, like things happen that we didn't anticipate, that we didn't plan for. And when we adapt, where's your core? What do you go to, and how quickly? I guess that's a good question. I think if you're watching this right now, how quickly could you identify your top priorities if you had to, and you had to adapt on the fly? Yeah. So I like that. The other thing I thought of, I don't know why I keep going to gym analogies, maybe because it's this morning and I skipped my Monday morning workout.
Yeah, you have a newborn baby and you've been up since 3 a.m. with a baby.
They were screaming last night. It wasn't conducive to a workout. But we've all been to the gym on that 40% day. Where you're like, you don't want to be there, but you force yourself to go.
That's a good example.
But you go and you just get those few things done. What's my priority? What am I trying to achieve? And what momentum do I want to keep going? So, this is a tough business. This is a really, really hard business that will challenge you. And even as you said, a top 1%er, and knowing our top producers, the things that go a little sideways stick with you a lot more than the wins. And it is important to go back and remember your wins. Weekly, I do a little exercise where I write up my wins for the week. Because by Friday, sometimes I'm feeling a little punched in the stomach and all the things, especially the last few weeks, just with all the external stuff. And when you're able to summarize it and refresh your memory that, there's a lot of great things that happened. My mind is going to these couple things I want to fixate on. Yeah. But let's get that narrative, the internal monologue, shifting towards the positive, shifting towards the things we can control. I think that's really important.
I love that idea of just writing even one win down a day, because I agree that if you're waking up without a paycheck, most loan officers do. They're not on a, they're waking up to win their own business, and their actions equal the end game of the check at the end of the day, or the number of closed loans or what have you. But I think that, counting wins along the way, whether it's making those calls that you weren't 100% on, or going to the gym when you're at 40%, I think sometimes you just have to applaud that you showed up. Sometimes it's just like you said, just do it, just start. And sometimes just show up. You should applaud that as like, today I could have stayed in bed in my comfort sweats, which I love, and I could have just done that, right? But I got up, I got ready, I went and I did things that maybe in my head were easier to just talk myself out of, right? I could have talked myself out of doing the gym at 40%. But I think sometimes it's just about, like you said, just start, just do, and then applaud that you just showed up for yourself. I think that, I go back to the crash when you and I worked together, and I think about that. And some days it was just about showing up. Because the average loan size in Boise, Idaho was 105,000, friends. It was not beautiful. I can't even get a car for that much probably now. But I it wasn't easy. And sometimes you had to just, like you said, sometimes your small wins will give you sustainability in this business. Yeah.
Yo, 100%. Yeah, I go back to 105,000. I remember my my average loan size was 141 something. It was like, definitely working on volume, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I remember having this realization in college that no one was going to make me do anything. And it was like so liberating. Like I can sleep in. I could go out tonight. It's Thursday night. It's Friday. I could blow off my night. No one's going to say anything. No one's going to do anything. And then you go a little farther and you realize, oh yeah, like that's that self accountability. No
Mhm.
one is going to say anything, and especially when you get into like a pay for performance, waking up without a paycheck kind of business, no one's going to make you do anything. But what's that self accountability? What's that voice that's going to help you structure and build those things and build your business the way you want it to be? I think loan officer, what a great job being a loan
Oh,
officer is.
so
Like I
grateful.
just the flexibility, the lifestyle, the ability to earn a living, really second to none. I always think people should teach people about this business because we
Yeah.
all just fell into it. How is
Yeah.
that possible? A whole industry of people who accidentally got here
Got in the
but are
business. It's so
thrilled
true.
and
So
and, and
true.
don't go anywhere because they're like, yeah, this is great. It's like it's this hidden secret. But without that self accountability, if that's not there, that is like flounder and drown territory. And that's why I love that you're talking about the A word, and that that's a conversation that's really really worthy of having, for
Yeah.
people, and just putting it out there. That self accountability is huge.
So let's talk about this. I always say work life balance is bull beep because I think that in this business you have to kind of be all in, and I do think it's this business this business is amazing, like you said, and I'm so grateful for the years in this business that I've had. But people are like, Mandy, what about work-life balance? And I don't know. There's probably somebody, some brilliant speaker that can argue it and give you the reason why you can have it. But I think that if you're going to be all in anything and you're going to be really good at anything, there's not very much balance. I Let's talk about the price of that because I think sometimes we don't perception's reality. And if I look happy every day and I'm coming to work and I'm closing loans and things are good, there is a cost associated with being a successful originator in this business and being all in. And over the years, I've had to learn to find that space where I can be present for my kids, and I can be present at my job when I'm at either place. But it's a learned behavior. And so let's talk
Mhm.
about just that because I think a lot of producers struggle with, gosh, I'm all in over here and my personal life kind of suffers, right?
So I worked with a gentleman who said this in an incredible way that I hadn't heard before. Um, he called it work life integration because he said the
Very
same
good.
thing.
That's
Like
good.
work life balance doesn't exist. The second you accept that and you learn how to integrate it all together, the happier you'll be. And I remember earlier in my career really hearing work life balance and trying to do that almost to the point where I feel like, you step between the chalk lines at work and it's a certain way and a certain behavior. And then you go home and you're expected to be a totally different person. Relationships thrive or break down based on expectations and what people expect from them. And so for me, understanding, if I could help all the people in my life, children, spouse, like everyone understand expectations of what, this job and this lifestyle meant, that they were more accommodating. Right. Like in your situation, it certainly helps to have a partner who's like,
Yeah,
he
in the
certainly gets it,
business,
right?
right? In the
He
business, they
gets
get my
it. But
crazy.
the kids don't necessarily, and it's helpful to bring them along. So I've tried to expose them to this is what we do. Yeah, I had my stepson in here as an intern over the summer, and just partly to get him working a little
Yeah.
bit, but also to see what's going on. And my son works for the company, and I think we've been able to integrate to where the family understands this is a bit of what we do. The balance, I think balance is, yeah, balance is like, what are you trying to balance? Are you trying to
Great
get
question.
away from doing this? Because it's not a 9 to 5 job. If you're looking for defining lines, like even vacation, I don't have a defining line. I've never had a defining line because if I don't check in and make sure things are going well, I will be stressed out. I will make
Right.
everyone miserable on vacation. They will not have fun around me, because it's not, this stuff doesn't sleep. This is not something where you can leave a stack of work on your desk, go away for 2 weeks. It's going to be the same thing that you come back to. So I do think there's a lifestyle element of choosing this profession that I think, people should be really open and honest with themselves. It's not for everyone. If someone looked at it and said, this doesn't work for me, there's certainly other careers you can do. But
Right.
if you're going to be in this and you're going to be all in, could you imagine being a realtor and saying, I don't work on the weekends? Like, no, that's sacred time, right? It's just,
I don't show
you do,
houses then. Actually, after 5
yeah,
p.m., I don't
I
show
have a
houses
defining
either.
line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're honest with yourself, if you really understand what it's going to take to win, then I think you can integrate the two and do it in a healthy way. I imagine you've learned so many tips and tricks over the years. My kids have heard so many work conversations in the car. And I didn't, for years, I didn't understand they were listening and they go
Yeah.
like, so what are you going to do about that situation?
Yeah.
And they would
That's so
ask me.
awesome. Like, I think
So,
that you should, yeah, I think that's a good point, Yeah. I,
yeah.
I, I just finished a book, and one of my acknowledgments in the book is for my daughter, Allie. And I literally stated, you've been with me and since you were a little girl in a car seat in the back seat where I'm throwing you French fries so you're quiet so I can pull over and take an application on, the back of a envelope. And you're right. I think that it's it's only fair that your tribe around you, and that's what I call it, my tribe, if your spouse isn't in the business, make sure they understand what the business is about and what you're playing for. I think that's super key to having a healthy home life. Because if they don't understand what you're playing for, I had an LO ask me, they're like, Mandy, well, my husband's, he's an 8 to 5 job. And he's like, I don't understand why you're taking calls on the weekends. And I said, does he understand what you're playing for? I mean, does he understand that you're trying to provide your family, more opportunities for your kids to put money away for college or retirement or whatever? And she said,
Mhm.
you know what, maybe he doesn't. And I said, that's where I'd start talking about why you're doing what you're doing and why it matters to your family. And my kids, that's funny you say that. We have a big sales rally and I had the kids come because I wanted the kids to see that what Corey and I've done over the years makes a difference to people and makes a deep difference to their families. So the fact that your
Yeah.
kids are now
Yeah.
in your space and they see that what we do does matter. I mean, we get to help homeowners every day, get keys and open doors and build equity and wealth. That I don't know that. I think that you need to make sure your tribe is on board with your plan because that's where I see a lot of, personal relationships, even my past life, when I got divorced, that, and I was young and I didn't understand that I should have been very open about what I was trying to accomplish, and I think that that's just comes with maturity. But if you're listening
Mhm.
and you're like, my spouse wonders why I'm working a gazillion hours, tell them why, tell them what you're playing for. And especially if it's in the beginning, because you're not getting the check initially, make
That's
sure they
right.
understand what you're playing for and long term and can see the vision because I think that will help you in your personal relationships. I mean, what's your take? That's my advice.
I think it's spot on. I just go back to expectations. What is everyone's expectation? And are we clear? Are we able to tell each other what our expectations are? Can we compromise if our expectations are wildly far apart,
Yeah.
right? Or do we even know that they're wildly far apart? I think it's those difficult conversations and having them with the people in your life are not as difficult as you think. In fact, this is the most difficult thing about that conversation is the first statement you're going to make, and then probably not having your walls up and your guard up and desiring to win. I mean, if you can go into an expectation conversation with the people in your world, because work-life integration is a real thing. Like,
Yeah.
can you get it all integrated to where your children are showing up at your company event and you're able to say, this is how it all works, and this is what we're doing, and this is all what the time, energy, and effort goes to. I mean, not only are you setting expectations for your family, you're also shaping really solid human beings who understand the value of hard work, who understand like what it means to have a positive impact in people's lives, and kind of doing more than just showing up. I think all those things are extremely valuable. And then again, like especially with our children, right? We let them make the choices they want to make,
Yeah.
and you decide. But let me expose you to all this and see what you think. But yeah, that expectations piece, for sure, that's where things can break down. If you go into the balance philosophy, like somehow these are two different things that you have to balance, I think that's much more challenging for me to think about than just thinking about how do I make all of my life work, because I'm not a different person when I
Yeah, it
walk out
doesn't
the
just, I
door.
don't just turn it off at 5. I'm not a robot. I can't just
Well,
turn off my life at 5 and then, yeah.
the self, like we can't, I mean, with this around, right? That changed everything.
I
That
agree.
changed everything. Changed everything. And how do we even define guardrails for ourselves around that? And because we do have one of those professions, if you do want to escape into work, you can do it pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. So, for someone listening who feels like they're grinding nonstop to keep up, what's the first shift they need to make to perform at a higher level and keep their life, intact? And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a
Define your
lot to chew
priorities.
on.
Define your priorities. That's the first step. I can give you 20 steps past that, but define your priorities. Like what matters to you personally, what matters to you professionally. We do annual business planning. I know you
Yeah.
guys do. I know
Yep.
you're
Yep.
passionate about it. Annual business planning. I think some people show up because we called them 17 times and told them they really should.
Should,
And I,
yeah.
I think some people show up because they really want to. I think, back to the A word, it's a very personal exercise that we're passionate about. And so maybe we called you 17 times because we really believe you're
That
going to
this
get
makes a
something great
difference to
about.
your life.
It makes a
Yes.
difference. It makes a difference. And I think those are the moments when you can really be. I like to talk about working on your business instead of in your business. And you don't have to do it all the time, but you need to elevate out and you need to look at the landscape and you have to start figuring out what's important. And if you can set your priorities, then you'll learn how to set your day. The other one I'll give you, I'll say too,
Yeah.
because I can't resist. I think time blocking is one of the most valuable people that anyone can do in this business. Obviously there's things that interfere. Obviously there's top referral partners that are going to call you. Obviously you know, there's deals that go sideways occasionally, right? We're
Yeah.
we're
I
familiar with
mean,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
It's from time to time something goes on a file. But if you can run your day instead of letting your day run you, that is those things. Set your priorities, time block your day, live in your time blocks 80% of the time, to the
Yeah.
best of your ability. It's going to change your world.
Yeah. Have a plan going into your day, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Corey always calls it a daily wrap up. Whatever you didn't finish today, that kind of structures your day for tomorrow. And so you have
Yeah.
a generalized plan of what your day looks like. And I think that you bring up a really good point, because I see loan officers that are on the roller coaster, right? They're closing loans and they're really crushing life. They got the loans closing, and then the next month they go boom, and it's like 0 or 1, and then the next month they got 8, and then the next month they got 0 or 2 or whatever. And I think that the reason I see that is for what you just said, is because the time blocking, you get hyper focused on those 8 loans, right? Because you didn't get a check last month, or you got a very minimal check. So now those 8 loans are gold, right? And I
That's
get
right.
why loan officers do it and are hyper focused on that. But with that said, the time blocking, to your point, you still have to be marketing while you have those 8 loans, and whatever's smoldering, because we all have loans. Once the train leaves the crazy station, it usually stays on heading towards the crazy station until it funds. But uh, that smolder will still be there in an hour after you've made your phone calls that you need to make, right? And so, to your point, I think that top performing LOs recognize that. They set that aside and say, okay, this is smoldering over here. I need to deal with it. I need to have those hard conversations with buyers, agents, whomever it is. But this new lead or calling my referral partners today has to be my number one priority, because that's my future business. That's my future bank, right?
That's right.
And so the time blocking aspect of it, however people do it, I think is just critical to this business.
Well, you said smoldering. Gone are the days, and I miss them, of when we would legitimately take certain loan files, not the people's paperwork, but the file. Remember the folder you'd reuse and
manila
you'd put
folder,
the sticker? We'd burn them. If there was a really bad file, we'd burn that folder. It was ceremonial. We're like, that's gone. It's over with. But, I think, okay, expectations and trust that's a big, big defining line, because if you don't trust your team, then you will micromanage and baby bird your files. And especially when you have those 8 files, you have to give that trust. And that trust is going to start with expectations and speaking to them about what your expectations are, understanding their expectations. But when a file's smoldering, to your point, and you've told your team, here's what we need to do, can you do it this way? Following up on them 7 times in an email just says that you don't trust them. It doesn't say anything more than that. So it's that trust, like set the expectations, build the team you can believe in. I know how passionate you and Corey are about operations and operational efficiency, and that creates trust, right? Because that's what we can do as leaders to help, foment that environment that people can really trust in, because our goal is to get that always be prospecting mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Who are you calling today? Who are you building that next pipeline for? That roller coaster sucks.
It does.
I've been on it. I was on it early in my career until I figured some things out. And that roller coaster, but that's tough. That is tough. And you want to help people get off that.
Yeah, I think the team around you is really important, setting the expectations. And if you're a loan officer listening to this, pipeline reviews are critical to your success.
Yeah, they are.
That 1 hour going over in detail of your conditions on those 8 loans that we speak about in this example will end up, what that means for you in your future is that you don't have to talk about it tomorrow, because you already had a detailed conversation for 1 hour, time blocking that 1 hour. I have a non-negotiable, 9:30 every Thursday. It's a non-negotiable on my team.
That's right.
1 hour, period, end of story. And we go in detail. We talk, and just asking your processor, is everything good, is not a pipeline review, friends. A pipeline review means you actually look at the conditions, you understand you don't have 24 months employment history on an FHA, and you need to go find some more VOEs, or you need to, talk to the client or whatever it is. I just think that those little things will minimize your stress in this business and can help you. So prioritizing, like you said, getting your tribe around you, pipeline management, getting expectations set with your team. I mean, you gave such great examples today, Leif, of ways that people can help and have longevity in this business by just creating new habits.
Well said. Well, no, I think that's what it all comes down to. I don't think I said anything that was magic. There's no silver bullets.
Secret sauce.
Probably all things people have heard before.
Yeah, no secret sauce. But I do love that you said you just need to do it. You just need to start. And most times when we start, we fail forward. We learn and grow by those activities that you're doing today. And nobody shows up like radiantly confident in their lives. They usually, for anything we've ever done, we learn as we go, and confidence builds through reps, because you're an athlete, so you'll respect that. Confidence builds through reps, and you get more and more confident, and so over time, all these things that Leif gave you today on this episode, if you can just start to implement those in your business with baby steps by just starting, the reps will come, and you'll build your own process that meets your business expectations and meets your personality. And again, I'm just so grateful for you, Leif, and just the leader you are and the friend you are to Corey and I, and over the years. And we just, it's great to have people in the business that you can call and say, hey, will you be on my podcast and share your wisdom and your success. So thank you, friend.
Yeah, likewise. Really happy to be here. This is awesome. Congratulations on the book and the app and the A word.
Yeah, the A word. Yeah. I will send you a copy of the book too. Okay, take care of you.